Chapter 3 Reawaken.
Confused and scared, lost and empty, surrounded by an infinite black void. He's never felt anything before, and now that he's able, he feels absolutely nothing. He thinks he remembers that he had a life before this, yet all he'd ever done was survive. That was his purpose. He'd hunted and foraged. Now he floats through nothing, feeling nothing. Something comes to him then, like a warmth being forced into his body, and with it comes knowledge, what it means to be alive instead of just existing. The language that he somehow instinctively knows, called Ancient, gives words to his thoughts, and from them comes meaning and purpose. A feeling of weight comes to him, his body pressed firmly against the ground. Light begins somewhere far above, and slowly grows until it fills the whole of his vision. Shortly after, he's able to make out the contrasting shapes of tall trees all around him, reaching for the sky, and he concludes that this place must be inside a forest of some kind. How he knows this, he does not know. With effort, he sits up to take in his surroundings, looking one way, then the other. This is a colorless world, he thinks to himself. He can remember names for the colors from the dream: red, green, blue. But here, now, there are only shades of gray. The world is still and mostly silent, save the normal gentle sounds of nature, until an unseen voice from behind gives him a start.
Hello.
Her voice is soft and inviting.
Would you like any help?
He spins round to see a young girl and a small rodent staring at him. The rodent looks terrified, like it expects him to lunge at any moment. The girl looks like she wants nothing more than to comfort him. Who are you? His voice sounds unnatural to him, having never listened to it before.
I'm Pearl,
she says. Who am I? The voice coming out of him lacks the feelings of fear and uncertainty he's experiencing. The girl continues to look back at him and a smile comes to her face. She stifles a giggle and asks him a question.
Who would you like to be?
He'd like to be what he was again. A creature without thought, whose life he understood. Then he thinks, why is this girl laughing at me? What's so funny? He asks her, but not rudely, more as an inquisitive question that lacks any defensiveness. It can be hard to tell in his monotone voice.
I'm sorry,
she says, stifling another giggle.
It's just that the last time we met you, we thought you were so scary. And now that I can see you for real, well, you're not actually that scary at all.
The robot standing behind her legs moves closer to him. At first, it makes him nervous, the way he moves silently on all four limbs, with his dexterous hands acting as a second set of paws. The robot gets right in his face and sniffs at his lips, decides that he likes him, and brushes his body against his shoulder, letting his tail swipe across his face. The girl has a smile that reaches to her ears, delighted to see that they like each other so well.
The first name that comes to mind when I see you is Damon,
Pearl says, answering his earlier question. Damon. He lets the name linger in the air just long enough to let it fully soak in. Then, with a smile on his face, he says, Thank you.
You're welcome,
she says, returning his smile. And who is this? He gestures at the robot.
I haven't named him,
she says.
He's not sentient, like you and I are. I've just thought of him as Rolot.
Damon reaches his hand out and scratches the robot between the ears. Can I name him? He asks. She considers the idea of naming the robot, and whether individualism and awareness should come along with having a name. She thinks of the Bodhi, and how Ohm had told her to name the world and share the Bodhi with the worthy, which reminds her how this gray happened to possess the fruit. If she had been given the choice of whether or not to give a fruit to the gray she met last night, she doesn't think she would have. But this gray, Damon, appears to be a wholly different creature. She reaches into her satchel, pulls out a Bodhi, and gently tosses it to him.
Feed him that first,
she says. Damon catches the Bodhi and looks at it. He feels like he knows what it is, but at the same time he knows he's never seen anything like it. What is it? He asks.
A Bodhi,
she says.
The fruit of knowledge, you might call it. It's what made you as you are, and myself as well. I'll explain more once we're all together.
He takes one more look at the Bodhi before holding it out to the Rolot, who sniffs at the fruit before greedily snatching it out of Damon's hand. The Rolot wastes no time in taking a bite out of it, as much as he can fit in his mouth, and then another and another, packing chunks of it into his cheeks before he takes the time to chew. It makes Damon smile. I want to name him Raijus, Damon says. The Rolot cocks his head to the side and looks at him. He wonders if he understood, if the change was that instantaneous. He wonders if it had been like that for him. But then, without warning, Raijus goes visibly limp, like all the life had been ripped from him in an instant, and he crashes to the ground with a sickening thud. He lay there for some time, utterly motionless, before his body begins to contort, his back arching off the ground, his eyes and mouth agape. A terrible primal squeal escapes his lips just before he starts convulsing, his body bouncing around, his arms, legs, and tail flailing uncontrollably. Damon recoils in terror. Is he all right? He begs of Pearl. She appears to be almost at the point of tears, biting her bottom lip while watching him seize. When Damon's plea finally sinks in, she answers with a nod before managing any words.
Yes?
She says.
I think so. It was like this with you, too. At least I think it was. I wasn't there when you bit into the Bodhi, but you were having seizures when we found you.
He had no idea that it had been so violent like that for him. Does it last long?
No, but you slept for quite a while afterward.
Almost as if he'd heard them, Raijus suddenly stops moving. He immediately becomes peaceful, as if nothing had happened. He looks as though he's just laid down for a nap. Damon, somewhat hesitant, goes to his side and rearranges him so that he looks more comfortable, then places his hand gently upon his chest to make sure he's breathing. Pearl moves to the other side of Raijus and places her hand on Damon's. She looks at him with her large, scared eyes and tells him,
He'll be okay, Demon. I promise. We all will.